Jesi milostivi čovekoljubiv Bog i tebi slavu uznosimo, Otcu i Sinu i Svetome Duhu, sada i u vekove vekova.
In a world of shadows and secrets untold, where primeval stories make the brave go cold, mighty gods are high and realms below, whispers of legends that shape each soul. And nightmarish dreams, cryptids lurking, nothing's as it seems, giants walking, angels and demons fight, only truth can bring the light. Through the echoes of time, the tales unfold, mysteries arise as the prophecies are foretold, from valiant knights to buried treasure, this podcast brings nothing but pleasure. Welcome to mysteries and majesty. Study with us, don't be a travesty. Theology, mythology, fantasy, and horror. Dungeons and dragons, Skyrim and Mordor. Phantom powers haunt the evening, in gothic castles where they're screaming. Wizards cast spells in their towers tonight, exploiting enigmas hidden from our sight. Archaeologists make excavations deep of the ancient tombs where pharaohs sleep. In the dust of ages we chronicles keep, storytelling's power of monsters that creep. Mysteries and majesty is the place for you to learn about this haunted space. From scholarship to manuscripts of old, unlock the secrets of wisdom and gold.
Both in the summer months and in the winter months.
Blessed Saturday, everyone, and welcome to episode 110. This is a very unexpected episode that we didn't plan today, but since there have been news lately on many internet portals covering this, travel to Antarctica when it comes to the people who are supporting flat Earth model, people going there being disappointed and realizing that they spend so much time, energy, and money all these years believing in the flat Earth model, believing that's what the Bible teaches, believing that NASA and science and the government are all lying to them. And then when they went to Antarctica, they saw the 24-hour sun being there, and they and I appreciate this. They went honest in front of TV and their YouTube channels, and they admitted like we were wrong when it comes to flat Earth model. So we just want to cover very briefly. Maybe this episode will be an hour and something, shortly. We want to cover for the half of the episode. We want to cover a few videos and a few articles when it comes to this Antarctica expedition, and then we want to cover the end of the episode when it comes to biblical passages that people like this abuse. We want to try to help people how to properly apply hermeneutics, which is the art and science of reading the Bible. So we want to help people reading the Bible in the context by observing genres, observing surrounding verses and things like that they teach you, like one of the basic classes when you go to theology classes. Before we start diving into the material, I just want to thank Amber for finding time for the audience and for myself. She was the only volunteer. I was like 15 people. She was the only one willing to come tonight. So Amber, thank you so much. Can you please share something about your recent finished semester at college? Because you're doing masters, and that's something so fascinating for people like me, and also when it comes to your podcast.
So I just finished my third semester seminary. I am a biblical studies major focusing on Old Testament, which involves Hebrew and all kinds of really fun Old Testament stuff like that. And so, yeah, I'm halfway done now. I have 3 more semesters to go, and it's been really interesting. I've enjoyed the stuff that I've been learning, and really taking a look at things from a different perspective, and I've really enjoyed that. And so what I do on my podcast, it's called When Deep Calls Deep, and I spend most of my time talking about Old Testament things. So right now I'm doing a series on Why Leviticus Matters with Courtney Trotter, Spencer Owen, and Phil Bear, which is fantastic. That it turned out so much better than I thought, and so many people asked questions and wanted to see some more. So we're turning it into a series. So that's pretty exciting. And then I also have been doing some conversations with people of different Christian traditions, just trying to be like, hey, let's talk about the stuff that we agree on, and just spending some time, like, let's just be positive for a while. Let's take a deep breath, and let's just remember how to get along for a little bit. And so that, and then starting next month, I'm going to be joining on a couple segments on Faith Unaltered as one of their new co-hosts. So that's going to be fun and exciting. We're going to be doing a look at the methodology behind scholarship, and how to understand scholars, and what that means to people who aren't scholars, or academics, or things like that, and how do we understand what they're saying, and breaking down Hebrew, and how to understand the Old Testament from an ancient Near East mindset perspective, so that people, I think, can get a little better context on what's happening that we miss in the English. So that's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I have to admit, this is a confession. When I first became a believer between 20 and 25 years ago, I really thought the Old Testament was so boring. But I didn't know anything about it. I just thought that's obsolete. Why do I need it? It's so old. It's so boring. No. So I would read New Testament over and over. I would barely touch Old Testament. But I mean, I'm laughing now at my ignorance, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are people out there thinking and feeling the same. Like, why in the world do I still need Old Testament? And especially if they're listening to those internet preachers like Andy Stanley, they're like, what? I don't need this. So thankfully, you can be the bridge to those people who lack information, who are in a respectful way ignorant. Like all of us are ignorant when it comes to something, but they will be willing to ask questions, be intellectually honest, and find those answers. So I think what you'll be doing on both on your podcast and with Faith Unaltered will be amazing. So when it comes to for tonight, I prepared like a dozen of links. Most of them will be textual articles. We don't plan to read them all. That will take 3 hours easily. So we'll just read segments and then watch few very short videos, and then we'll switch to the biblical passages. Okay, so the first one, and I have mentioned all of these articles and YouTube pages in our description of this episode. So please support these websites and their YouTube pages. Subscribe, donate if it's in your heart, whatever. I'm just giving credit where the credit is due. Okay, so this one is titled "Flat Earther," and you can see that I'm sharing the screen, right? Okay. Sometimes it does. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't always work. So this one is titled "Flat Earther Visits Antarctica to See If the 24-hour sun is real and has an emotional reaction." This is so funny. Flat Earthers and quote-unquote globe Earthers came together for the truth-finding trip of a lifetime. 3 years ago, a pastor from Colorado named Will Duffy found out that some people believed and still believe that the earth was flat. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Hadn't we settled this debate centuries ago? Not only was the debate continuing to rage on, but it was incredibly divisive and was part of a doorway to discredit even more crucial science. And I would say yes, because these things make Christians look foolish. And when we speak to our skeptical friends and atheists, this may seem even as another way why they would reject the Bible and Christianity. So the pastor decided to take it upon himself to end this question once and for all. How? By taking a trip to Antarctica. And this is where all the fun starts. So Pastor Duffy devised a project called The Final Experiment, in which he invited prominent flat earthers along with a crew of globe earthers to explore the most remote climate on the planet together. And I love this. So it wouldn't be divisive, it wouldn't be, oh, you said this, but I wasn't, people from the other group weren't there. How can we believe each other? But no, if we will pick most prominent YouTubers and podcasters and voices on both sides and meet with the pastor and go to this location, that should be pretty much, enough evidence for everyone. It doesn't matter which side do you belong to. In a flat Earth model, Antarctica is usually depicted as an ice wall that encircles the rest of the planet. Sometimes it's shown as its own distinct continent. However, by visiting Antarctica in the summer, the team would be able to see Antarctica's famous 24-hour sun or midnight sun up close and personal. Flat earthers, crucially, this is very important, do not typically believe that a 24-hour sun is possible. In their models, the sun would rise and set in Antarctica the same way it does everywhere else. The existence of midnight sun would, if not outright prove, at least heavily suggest the Earth is a tilted sphere. Of course, there are also already mountains of evidence and data that show that Earth is a sphere and plenty of documentation of the existence of midnight sun. But never mind that for now. And I understand, because if people were skeptical, they wouldn't care what the official science says. They wanted to see for themselves. And this reminds me of Thomas. When everyone else saw Jesus resurrected, he was like, no, I want to see. I want to put my fingers on when I feel it. I'm like, okay, I was once Thomas, so I understand. As long as we are honest and respectful, I understand. So Pastor Duffy reached out to several big-name flat earthers, and many declined to take the trip. That's already suspicious. Why would you decline the opportunity that comes once in a lifetime, especially because conspiracists believe that the government doesn't allow you to go to Antarctica. It's all protected at their military bases, and if you go there, you'll be shot or kicked out. But lo and behold, I met people online who said, no, you can actually take cruise trips to Antarctica and go and see and explore yourself. It's not, no one will kill you. It's not forbidden. So I'm like, dude, why are people and Christians people inventing lies? But I don't think it's a lie for them. They just hear a rumor that was said by someone on a podcast or someone in person, or maybe they read in a blog or something like that. And when you keep repeating something, it sounds like truth, even though it's not credible, but sounds like truth. So I think this is what was happening. Duffy reached out again to several big-name flat earthers, and many declined. But he was able to get a handful of brave explorers on board. The group flew deep into the interior of Antarctica, landing on an ice runway near Union Glacier Camp. Will Duffy, so Pastor Will Duffy, and his crew live streamed the whole thing on YouTube via Starlink. Man, I can already imagine flat earthers saying that the video was altered or edited, or someone paid people on their side, flat earthers, to lie for them. I can only imagine that this would still not be enough for many people. But I mean, in that case, there's nothing you can do to show them wrong. For me, it bothers me that they would actually abuse the Bible to prove their point. And this is where I'm lamenting. As a Christian, I'm lamenting because it makes us look so foolish in front of atheists. The video begins at midnight with the sun high in the sky, an absolutely stunning sight for many on the expedition. Pastor Duffy then allows each member of the team to share their thoughts on the journey and their observations. So let me see if this video works. This is 15 minutes. Well, let's just see the beginning. We can comment as we're watching.
Okay.
And of course, people can come on this link and watch the whole video. Okay, so the expedition lasted for 4 days.
Welcome to Antarctica. So great to see everybody. Super excited that we're live streaming from Antarctica, but more importantly, it is midnight where we are at, right outside of Union Glacier. And so the question is, obviously everyone can see that it is super bright behind me. So the question is the sun still up at midnight, or is this a coffee cup caustic or a reflection off the dome? So before I give you the answer, I want to tell everybody about today. Today was a very emotional day for me. This is something I've been working on for over a year. And when I woke up this morning, I knew today was finally the day that we were going to fly to Antarctica. And it's been a year of overcoming adversity, just having people tell me things that we weren't going to be able to do and just trying to make it happen. So I've been thinking through all of the things that I was told over the last year. And, you know, the first one I think was that we would not actually go to Antarctica. And here we are in Antarctica. Some people tried to say that whatever we were going to do in December was already filmed somewhere else in the world, and this will just be a recording. So I will go ahead and interact with your comments. I'm going to do my best with these glasses on. I can't remove them. The snow blindness is very, 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 very white.
That's real.
M2M.
Yeah.
Daylight, you just saw your comment. Thanks for all your support this last year on X. But anyway, yeah, if you have thoughts you want to share or questions, just go ahead and put them into the chat, and I will interact with you to just show that this
I love
is live.
that it went live.
So I was told we wouldn't make it to Antarctica. Here we are. I was told that the trip was canceled, and it was not canceled. I was told that we would only be able to go to the coast of Antarctica. We wouldn't be able to go to the interior. We wouldn't be able to go to right at 80 degrees south, which is where we were planning on going. And here we are in the interior. Hopefully you see the GPS tracking units on our website showing where we're at. I was told that we could only take a boat to Antarctica, not a plane. And we flew on a 757 today to get here. I was told that if we did make it this far, that we wouldn't be able to have any internet. And here we are, utilizing Starlink satellite internet to live stream. I was told that no flat earthers would go. And we got two of the biggest flat earthers, Jaron and Austin, to join us. Once they agreed to go, I was told that anybody who's a big name in flat earth is just a shill. And they're not real. And you'd have to get somebody that nobody knows is a flat earther if you really want this to be the real deal. And not a lot of people knew about her. She didn't have a big presence like some of the other people do. So anyway, it's just been a year of just being told you can't and you won't. And we're just, coming through and making this happen. Nice. I was also told that if we somehow did make it here, that NASA would make fake clouds to cover the sky so that we couldn't see the sun. And as you can see, blue sky.
Oh, that's awesome.
Not a cloud in the sky. Really cool
God,
story.
This is better than any comment.
When we got to Union Glacier today,
I wonder how people
landed, our plane landed
think
on a
NASA
blue light
is so
runway,
powerful to control the weather.
They loaded us all up into a vehicle
and these are
drove
the
us to
adults with
Union Glacier
IQ
Camp. And
of
when I got off, they said, "Will, you gotta come meet with David Roots." I knew who he was. He's one of the owners of ALE. We've
We
talked
used
on
to
the
live in
phone and
Alaska, so the
emailed,
snow
but we never met
blindness
in
and the
person.
sunglasses
So
is
I
totally
went to the operations
Where you lived in
operations
Alaska? Wow. Okay,
office
so you
and met
experienced
with
some
David
of it, not
to
exactly,
talk
but
about what we were going to be doing out here and what the plan was and what they had set up for us. And he looked at me. One of the first things he said is, he said, Will, we've had terrible weather for 2 months and you guys show up and we have perfect weather. And he said, I think someone's looking out for you. So I completely agree.
I think this was like
This has
divine
been a
appointments
journey,
for the people who stop with their
and
nonsense.
so many people have helped.
Like
Helped
even
us
God
get
is
here.
embarrassed of the
I
flat
am
earthers.
going
He's
to
like, I'll
forget
remove the clouds
right
for you.
now, in the moment,
I think God has a sense
all
of
most of
humor
the
and
people
laughs at
that helped
some
us
of
get
our
here. But I do want
brilliant
to thank
ideas
some people
sometimes.
individually by
Yeah,
name.
God is like, I'll remove the storm, and
First
conspiracy
and
people,
foremost is
harp
Joel Montoya.
machine, like
So Joel was the
removing
first
clouds.
person that I told about the final experiment. And I took a risk. He saw a sermon that I had online, and he sent me a
Well,
private
most
message on
when
Facebook,
people that
and
he
we
brought
started
with him
communicating.
started giving
And by
testimony.
chance, he was actually, just pick somebody. All right, Mark. So we're going to start with Mark Herman, Candace Owens' director. Say hi to Mark.
I'm not going first just because I want to take a nap. Okay. I'm Mark Herman. I'm Candace Owens' director. I'm very, very thankful to be here.
I'd be thankful for a free trip to Antarctica too.
Very thankful to be here. This is an incredible
it was
place,
expensive.
and these are all incredible people. Who would have thought that two groups of four people who are so opposed in belief and ideology to the point where there's ridicule and there's shame, there's all kinds of horrible things, but when they come together, especially in this environment, I've seen so much camaraderie and teamwork between people, and I think that's a huge thing that has really moved me, and I'm very thankful to be a part of it. And so
That's awesome.
Will, thank you so much for this opportunity. Candace, thank you for letting me go here. And check out our live stream of the sun on Rumble, and I believe a member of each side will be on Candace's show in the coming weeks after this to discuss it. So
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
thanks, Will.
Cool. Yeah, it's been really great having Mark here. So he's a world traveler. He actually had to go from the U.S. to London first, and then had a very quick turnaround in about a half a day, and then all the way from London south to Antarctica. So thanks, Mark, for being here. Who is up next? All right, so we've got Critical Think. Check out his YouTube channel, Critical Think. He is here from Australia, and we're super, super excited to have him. And he's actually doing an experiment of his own, which he's going to tell you about right now.
Oh, sun's bright. What's that thin bright object in the sky there? Yeah, I'm Critical Think, and I'm from down under. And I flew across the Southern Pacific on a flight QF27. And that has all kinds of problems. We were told it didn't fly, etc., etc. But anyway, I'm here. I'm in Antarctica.
Amber, if I didn't believe in aliens, I believe now.
Where's Wally? He's one of the wolf pack. He was in
the flat earthers have convinced you that they're really aliens.
He couldn't come along. He would have loved to have come along, but he couldn't come along. But he did send an experiment. So I've got that experiment running now for him. It's a time lapse of a sundial that will record the shadow, hopefully for 24 hours, and also the length of the shadow. Do we want to have a look at that?
Probably a little too hard for that.
Those goggles are awesome.
So the other thing is, and my experiment that I've brought with me is the weight change versus latitude experiment. Now, this is a historic moment because this will be the first time that we have had someone come to Antarctica. This is what that I know of, that has made a prediction of what a mass will weigh and come to Antarctica and test it out. Now, there's only been one other occasion where they sent a set of scales to Antarctica, and that was the GNOME experiment, but that was not a formal experiment. That was just a marketing exercise. So we've done that experiment. Well, we're going to do it. Are we going to do it live now?
You want to?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
So we'll do it live. I got the scale set up. I've made a prediction. I've made several predictions along the way. They've all come true very close. Today, the prediction is 1,003 grams and 80.80. And that is 3.8 grams heavier than when I started out in Brisbane. And that's what the globe predicts. So we'll go and measure.
Let's do it. All right, we're going to head in here real quick. So this is the building that we have set up for us by ALE to hang out in while we're filming the sun. So we'll go ahead and come in here and
Well, I don't know if we
partake
can
in
believe
this
ALE.
experiment.
It's government
It's
owned.
good.
I don't know.
It's well, either that or there's a lot of alcohol involved in this. I don't know if it's.
So what I have here
And it's so funny when he said
This is
a
my
building, and I'm
front
like, it just looks like a big container.
is the one that is most accurate.
This
So-
is like a deluxe outhouse or something
Oops.
here.
I've leveled the scale here already, and it's pretty hard to find something very level here, but there we go. It's level, and we weigh our 1 kilogram mass. Now you have to stand very still because it will make waves. You can see that it's moving. So, but we got 75 or 76. That is so close to what the prediction is.
Awesome.
So there you go.
Thank you so much. All right. Glasses back on to be outside.
That's right. Snow blindness is a thing.
No, I think they're hiding something, Amber.
All right, we just hit
they're in a Hollywood studio, just like
we just
with
hit
the
3,100
fake moon.
watching live, which is super exciting. So glad everyone is here. Okay, who's up next? All right, we've got a fan favorite, Mr. Dave McKeegan, all the way here from England. It's been so fun hanging out with Dave, and I'll let him tell you how he's been enjoying it and what he's up to here.
I can't even see the screen here. I'm just seeing a reflection of myself. So I'm going to trust that everyone is there and watching. And the first thing I'm going to say is, Will, just thank you so much, sir, for this incredible opportunity, because never in a million years did I think that I would ever come to a place like this. And the whole experience has just been unbelievable. It's been stressful enough for me, only having to deal with my bits and pieces, and you are probably the calmest person I've ever met. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I think everyone would probably say the same thing.
Absolutely.
To everyone else watching, where are we here? A lot of people saying, hey, Dave. Probably people complaining that, yes, there we are. Where is
Don't
it?
take
Somebody
your
was
glasses
asking,
off. That's a bad idea.
Everyone wants to know where Rusty is. Rusty sends his apologies. He wouldn't fit in the suitcase. So I am here on his behalf.
I'm actually glad that he's
yeah,
doing
this
the
has been an
comments
amazing,
live, so
amazing
he's
trip.
showing to people, yeah,
The
we-
weather
we're
has been
recording live.
perfect on the flight in. We've been keeping busy when we were in Chile. The trip in, the flight,
Yeah,
the
Third Master,
scenery
I
was
agree. Very
unbelievable.
cool
ALE have
experience.
been
Yeah.
beyond incredible with what they've done. They have basically literally moved heaven and earth to set us up here. We have cameras galore.
So
I
the
have
video is
a
another 30
360
minutes.
camera
There are a
that
bunch
is
of people on
recording
both sides who will
a-
be giving
Yeah,
testimony.
skip ahead a little bit.
360-degree view time lapse.
Yeah, I was like, we'll skip this video. I'll just leave it for people to continue. But let me continue with the article. So Campagnolo, one of the most prominent flat earthers on YouTube, spoke from the heart. Sometimes, and I highlight this, sometimes you're wrong in life. I love this intellectual honesty. Be humble. I thought there was no 24-hour sun. In fact, I was pretty sure of it. He said bluntly after observing it with his own eyes. It's a fact. The sun does circle you in the south. What does it mean? You guys are gonna have to figure that out yourselves. Okay, he's not telling us. He stopped short of definitely admitting that the Earth is a sphere, but he did confess that this will be very hard for me to pronounce, azimuthal distant map, the most popular flat Earth model no longer makes sense in his mind based on what he saw in Antarctica. And then he says, I realized I'll be called a shill for saying that. And you know what? If you're a shill for being honest, so be it. I honestly believed there was no 24-hour sun. I honestly now believe there is. There it is, he said. It seems silly, since most of us can acknowledge that a spherical Earth is settled science. But by making this admission on camera, Mr. Campanella risked losing his audience, his credibility in his community, and even his livelihood as a content creator with nearly 2,100 followers. That means just on his page, 200,000 people with low IQ. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean necessarily, but that's what it means. I mean, people who are into conspiracies and people, unfortunately, most of them are religious people who don't know how to read the Bible. That's what usually it is. These are usually fundamentalist King James Version only Bible who don't believe in anything. And whatever you will tell them, they'll combat you with some conspiracy. And you cannot talk with people like that. It took courage to finally admit that he was wrong. Respect for him. He sounded shaken and he knows he's going to receive backlash, wrote a commentator on YouTube. I'm quite impressed by him. He chokes up and was quite emotional. Clearly, this was a deep-seated belief of his, and he handled being proven wrong with grace. Good for him, said another person. Why is it so hard for us to let go of deeply held beliefs? Beliefs aren't always logical decisions, but emotional ones, and I agree with that. Our identities and our sense of self get so tied up into what we believe. Believing a conspiracy theory might start as genuine curiosity or confusion, which but quickly spiral into much more. People often make good friends and meet romantic partners inside of communities based on their beliefs. So to let go of that is deeply threatening to our psyches. And I have to admit, this is not just when it comes to conspiracies, religion, cult, philosophy, anything where you feel like you have questions and there are like doubts, and when you start going the rabbit trail, if you're not being careful, it can lead you anywhere. You can end up deconverting, you can end up being in another religion, cult, new age, or create something, just you can combine so many different beliefs that you can end up creating something on your own because, quote unquote, you did your research, right? And that's what I hate when people tell each other online, do your research. And research for most people is not going to the library, is not buying scholarly book, it's just Googling, going to Wikipedia, blogs, and the quote unquote dark web. That's for most people, that's what research is.
Well, most people now don't even do that much research. They just go to YouTube or TikTok and see what's on YouTube or TikTok and find whatever they like. Like, oh, I like that guy. He must be telling me the truth.
Yeah, I like his accent. Must be from,
must be from Serbia.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to subscribe and donate money. Like, okay,
that's right.
Yeah, this is how cults are starting, with money and followers. So I'm okay with that.
Hey, wait! I didn't get on a cult channel, did I? This is suspicious.
You'll be famous. Maybe we'll go to Antarctica one day.
Hey,
we'll wear goggles like this. When the dude showed up, you could only see his head and goggles. Anyway,
that was so funny. Okay, anyway.
So he says our ego or sense of self finds comfort in our various identities, just as we have fight, flight, or freeze instincts to protect our physical well-beings. We defend our psychological sense of self when our various identities are threatened. Man, I would agree. Imagine if someone would try so hard to prove Jesus doesn't exist, or Jesus is not God, there's no afterlife and something, and let's say they're this close to proving me wrong. I would feel like, even if it's false, I want to hold on to it because my whole life, my whole identity is based on Christ. So I would feel like my life is crumbling. So I'm just being honest. Like with Paul said, if the resurrection didn't happen, like our faith is futile, it's in vain. So I can understand people who hold certain beliefs almost religiously, even though this does not have to be religious at all. But unfortunately, again, people go to Old Testament and twist the Bible, and we'll do with that very shortly.
But it has to come down to paradigm shifts, and paradigm shifts are extremely difficult because you have to redefine your entire universe and redefine how you understand everything, and that is scary. That is a very scary thing. So
Yeah, and it's funny because the beginning of the next sentence says our ego, and I would agree. Like, man, sometimes if someone's objection or evidence is so valid, so solid, you're like, oh, I don't have anything to comment. I'm just disarmed. Sometimes it's our pride that won't admit to others. You know what? I think you're right. I think I'm gonna start challenging my worldview and start digging and checking sources or scholars from your perspective. Maybe you're right. Maybe I have to, check my sources and maybe even change my worldview. That will take some guts, especially if you spend decades, half a life, or your whole life believing something. This is not easy.
yeah.
I know we praise God when Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists come to Jesus, but dude, that was not easy. Like, they have to sometimes they're rejected from all their family and friends. They lose jobs, they lose positions, they lose their social status. They can lose everything. That's not so easy. It's easy for us to quote the Bible, verses like, well, if you deny me, I'll deny you in front of my Father. Like, it's so easy to be judgmental towards others. But when you're in that position, it takes so much guts, so much humility to say, you know what, you got me here. I'll go and check my worldview, and I'll get back to you. But I think you got something. That takes guts.
I just did a video last week on the theology of being wrong, and we talked about all of the reasons why being wrong is so difficult and so hard for people. So yeah, it was really fun conversation.
Yeah, I also want to thank all the live chat comments, which I cannot see because I'm reading the articles. But Amber is here, so I think she'll take care of you guys. So he said, our ego or sense of self finds comfort in our various identities, just as we fight, flight, or freeze instincts to protect our. Okay, I've read this. Even when we see the truth with our own eyes, it can be hard to accept. I think what matters most is putting our egos aside. Lisbeth, another flat earther that accompanied the final experiment to Antarctica, said, are we here for truth, or are we here to hold onto narrative and ego? Ooh, this is so good. I would say bravo, Lisbeth. Bravo. Good job. Some people just need to see things from their own with their own eyes to believe. And putting your most deeply held beliefs on the line and going into new situations with an open mind, knowing core pieces of your identity may not hold up to scrutiny, is admirable, no matter what the rest of us might think about the validity of those beliefs. Mark Herman, who also went on the voyage, said, who would have thought? Two groups of people are so opposed in their beliefs and ideology to the point where there's ridicule, there's shame, all kinds of horrible things. But when they come together, there's so much camaraderie and teamwork between people. And we heard the gentleman speaking the same words. Okay, so this is the end of the first article. I'm going to check some other articles and see if we missed on something that was not mentioned here. In the meantime, would you like to comment on any part from this article before we switch to another one?
No, I don't think so. I think it was really a lot more about the pride of admitting that you're wrong than it was about debunking flat Earth itself. I think that really was the focus of that one. So no, I don't think but I think we've gotten to the part where they're going to try to talk science to us yet.
Yeah, okay, so the next article is called What? Flat Earth Myth Debunked After YouTubers RS31 Lack Trip to Antarctica. Okay, I don't have to read all the names and places. And okay, this is interesting. YouTuber Campanella, popular flat earther, had his entire belief system shattered after he traveled nearly 14,000 kilometers from California to Antarctica and spent $37,000 to test his rather non-scientific theory. Prior to embarking on the trip, Mr. Campanella was certain that Antarctica is just an ice wall where the sun rises and sets every day. They forgot to mention that usually people who believe in ice walls, they believe in military bases, UFOs, hollow earth, and whatnot hiding there in Antarctica. It's never just a flat earth. It's always like several different conspiracies combined into one. So they didn't cover in all these articles the other part of the story, but trust me, I have friends and I've read people's comments and heard some stories where people, they don't just believe, oh, Antarctica is where's the ice wall. That's not just that. There's more when it comes to their story, right? And this is where I love sci-fi and fantasy, but this is where I stop being amused, and I just can't listen to people when they truly believe that alien ships are underground, whole new civilizations. They'll kill you if you go there, and you cannot, touch that, wall and all these things. And guess what? All these people went there. No one threatened them. No one killed them. They came back safely. They reported all these things. No one forbid them to, to take experiments, to take videos. Nothing happened. All these years, people have been saying for years, it's forbidden to go to Antarctica. It's not forbidden. So it's like, I don't know. I hate when people are just inventing things to suit their, ideologies. Consequently, he traveled to the faraway continent to prove his point. Upon reaching there, Mr. Campanella realized that the sun does not rise in Antarctica during the southern hemisphere's summer, and that everyone else was right. Okay, and we read his quotations that sometimes you're wrong in life. Kudos to you for admitting. Let's see, this should be a quick video.
Now turn it over to the flat earthers. Who would like to go first? So obviously you all know Jaron Campanella of Jaronism, one of the most.
Okay, we covered that. I thought maybe it's just another person that he had as a for the
so
eyewitness. Okay, let's read this end. The final experiment, despite being proven that Earth was indeed spherical thousands of years ago, flat earthers continue to question the reality. And yes, this wasn't enough for some of them. To bring an end to such naivety, Colorado pastor Will Duffy planned an expedition called The Final Experiment. And I'll also say, go and support his YouTube page and subscribe, in which 4 flat earthers and 4 globe earthers were flown to Antarctica to witness the continent's midnight sun. Okay, this is the story we already read on the previous website. What was your opinion on this?
I don't. This is a lot of this is over my head. This is science stuff. I'm not that sciencey, but I dropped a link in the private chat there, Nico. The Sword Master Publication, who was here, he'll be back in a little bit, sent me some stuff. He's the physics teacher I was telling you about. This is a graphic as to according to the flat Earth theory, this is what would happen where they are on at the Antarctica. If you were at that exact point, this is what should happen on a 24-hour instead of a 24-hour sun. There should be a point where there's always light and dark. So according to flat Earth, that's how the sun goes. So there's always going to be somewhere in the dark and always somewhere in the day.
Yeah.
But what they did in Antarctica actually proved they could watch the sun. And we saw this in Alaska. I wasn't far enough to be in the 24-hour sun, but my husband, when he was on for work, he used to travel up to Barrow, which is the furthest northern point in the United States. And he saw both the midday sun and the midnight sun. So he got to see both the sun go around all day and no sun at night or all day. So he got to see both sides of that equation. But this right here is what they're debunking, is that according to flat Earth, the sun should do that instead of be up 24 hours a day that time of year. So that was helpful for me to try to kind of understand it. So the math makes it impossible with a curved Earth for that to be the reality at Antarctica where they were.
Yeah, and I left this this link that you sent to me so people can see what actually was happening. And like you said, there at one point there's always that dark side, of course, and on the flat Earth model, even according to their own so-called experts, this would not be possible. So this is why finally some of them stopped believing in flat Earth. But as I was reading some other articles on just mere googling, some skeptics and conspiracies, they say this is still not enough of the evidence. They still believe in flat Earth for God knows what reasons. They would find any excuse to continue believing. And I'm like, well, and I mean then
Mm-hmm.
it's no one else's job to try to change your opinion. If you made your opinion and that's what you believe, go ahead and believe. But
Yeah.
what bugs me again is when people, if you tell them this is not biblical, they will attack you. They can get very aggressive. So
Yeah,
I
they
don't-
can. But it's that protecting that paradigm at all costs, sometimes to the complete denial and ignoring facts and truth. And
Mm.
there is some, science, the adherence to science is as much of a religion as religion is. So, it can be just as difficult to change your views on science.
Yeah. Okay, I have two very short videos. Both are under 1 minute, so let us watch them. Both
How
videos.
far would you go to prove a point? Well, an internet famous flat earther has gone all the way to Antarctica to put his theory to the test, only to be proven wrong. During the summer, the South Pole experiences 24 hours of sun. Gerard Campanella, who runs a popular flat earth YouTube show, hoped the $35,000 trip would disprove that. Instead, he saw firsthand that the sun does not set during this time, debunking the theory that Antarctica is just a big ice wall circling the planet.
They believe that. I see. I didn't know that last
Mhm.
part, that they believe that. That's wild.
Mhm.
And I don't want to be offensive because some of them are our brothers and sisters. They're just deceived and being silly. But whatever. Okay, this is 48 seconds, so I think we can see it. It's a short video. Okay, there's no comment. It's basically just showing you
Mhm.
24-hour sun.
Yeah, and up in Alaska, it would, where we lived in Anchorage, you would see, like, it would be like sun, almost like right before sunrise, when you can see the sun is coming.
Mhm.
You would see that all night long, so you could see the effects of the sun, or that the sun was there 24 hours a day. But we didn't. You have to go further north than we lived to actually see it spin like that all for 24 hours.
Remember how difficult it is to sleep when it's like 2 in the morning and it's so bright outside.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people put either blackout curtains, or tinfoil works great for that too. Put tinfoil on your windows. It really, because
Yeah.
the shine of the aluminum foil reflects the light really, really well.
Mm. So okay, I think that these 15 minutes along with the intro would be enough when it comes to these articles and videos. And again, people can check all the links I provided and watch more and read more and listen. But I want to end this episode with some biblical passages.
Okay.
And for that sort, I want to share a few of the Christian articles. This
Okay.
one is from God Questions, and this is what Ember found. It's titled, Does the Bible Teach That the Earth is Flat? In attempts to discredit the reliability of the Bible, many skeptics claim that the Bible depicts a flat Earth. Further, there are more than a few Christians who believe the Bible teaches the Earth is flat. Even further, there are some people who simply question the scientific consensus and the seemingly overwhelming scientific evidence, and or see some sort of conspiracy to deceive humanity that the Earth is spherical when it is in fact flat. Regarding the biblical evidence, references such as Revelation 7:1 are cited, which speaks of, quote unquote, four angels standing on the four corners of the
Mhm.
earth. Some also point to a Psalm 75:3, which says that God holds the pillars of the earth firm.
Right.
One more sentence, and I'll ask you to comment on this. Other passages, they claim they teach a flat earth, and that will be Deuteronomy 13:7, which says some of the gods of the peoples who are around you, whether near you or far off from you, from the one end of the earth to the other. Then Job 28:24, which says, "For he looks to the ends of the earth and sees everything under the heavens." And Psalm 48:10, "Is your name, O God, so your praise reaches to the ends of the earth. Your right hand is filled with righteousness." And at the end, Proverbs 34, which says, "Who has ascended to heaven and come down? Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has wrapped up the waters in a garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name and what is his son's name? Surely you know." Basically, at least in this passage, in this segment of the article, they found all those verses that says the end of the earth, and they're like, "Oh, see, this is the evidence." But let me just finish, and you can comment. And all of which references the quote unquote ends of the earth. So, are they correct? Does the Bible really teach that the earth is flat? Okay, Amber, since you're a master in biblical studies and you had hermeneutics, you learn how to do the exegesis.
Right.
Can you please tell us, when we see passages like the ends of the earth or four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, what does it tell us? Should we read these passages as in the most wooden sense without paying attention to the context, in the most literal way?
No, absolutely not. That most all of this is poetry. So, visions and dreams are symbolic in and of themselves, and I'm not a Greek scholar, so I can't really speak to Revelation, but Psalm is poetry. Job, we're going to get to those later. Those are almost all poetry. So there's a lot of imagery that's happening, and it helps to understand some of the ancient Near East mind and some of the way that they viewed the world. Okay, and I remember in Torah class when we were talking about Genesis 1 and the creation narrative, and my professor, she brought with her, and I tried to find them, but I couldn't dig them up fast enough before this, but she pulled some images, some artwork that they found on some different tablets and things from places in like different Mesopotamian legends and things like that. And there was one particular culture that really struck me, and I keep meaning to go look this up to find it. But the ancient Near East mind there's something called the sky plate that separated the realm of the divine from the realm of the temporal and the human realm. And that sky plate, and I can't remember, I wish I could, which culture it was, and I don't want to just wildly guess because I don't want to be that inaccurate, but it struck me because she showed us the artwork, and that sky plate in that culture was the body of a dead goddess that was held up by four of her children, and that was the barrier between the divine and the human. And so this four pillar imagery is something that's familiar to the ancient Near East mind, to mean that is the support, that is the thing that holds everything up. So, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be flat. And the sky plate itself would have been curved, and they probably, they would have, because the ancient Near East, there's a common misconception going around that the Bible Old Testament times thought the earth was flat, but that's not correct either. Astrology, they were steeped in astronomy and astrology and reading the stars, and would have been very familiar with the movements of the planets and the fact that the earth was curved. So, that has also been debunked as well, that they were writing from a flat earth perspective.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I'll continue with the article. The truth is, the Bible does not comment on the shape of the planet Earth. It does not say that the Earth is flat, and it does not say that it is spherical. Let's take a closer look at some of the commonly cited passages that supposedly depict a flat Earth. Revelation 7:1 says, "I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding back the four winds of the earth." in writing this, the
Mhm.
Apostle John was using idiomatic language. The four corners of the earth refer to every distant location. We use the same idiom today. For example, when we speak of Olympic athletes coming from the four corners of the earth to compete in the games, we mean they're coming from all over the world.
Right.
Honestly, I feel this is almost embarrassing to explain to an adult what the four corners of the world would mean in everyday language. It reminds me when I was a newcomer and I came to the country and people would use figures of speech like, "Oh, that's the water, under the bridge." So for me, I was imagining literally how that looks like. I was like, "That doesn't make sense. What are you telling me? Can you explain?" And then much later, I understood that people saying, "Oh, that's past. Just let it go. It's forgiven. It's past." Like, let's not dwell on that. I'm like, oh wow. So it's like it's a form of speech that I never heard in my culture before. So I mean, for some stuff we do have excuse that we don't understand in the Bible because we don't think in the same way. We don't use the same proverbs or the same forms of speech, and that's fine. But come on, if you would tell someone four corners of the earth, that's like the same logic and thinking both in the ancient times and today. And I feel it will be unless Jesus comes in thousands of years from now, that will basically mean like people from everywhere, from the whole planet. It's like, why do we? I don't know. I would understand if I have to explain this to a child. So this is kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay, the Book of Revelation is full of non-literal descriptions and
Mhm.
symbolic language. We'll skip this. Four corners are, of course, north, south,
Yeah.
east, and west. And I would say, duh. Like I really thought this was so easy to
Mhm.
understand. Okay, Psalm 75:3 quotes God saying, "When the earth and all its people quake, it is I who hold its pillars firm."
Mhm.
Other
It's
passages
the
also
pillars.
refer, yes, pillars. Other passages also refer to the earth's pillars, such as 1 Samuel 2:8, but in no case should the language be taken literally. The book of Psalms and Hannah's song in 1 Samuel 2 are poetry. The writers liken the founding of the earth of the constructing of a house, and their description are comparative or metaphorical, not literal. The point is not that the earth is flat, but that the earth belongs to God. It is His construction, and He guarantees its stability. So God's quote unquote pillars will not move, and His quote unquote roof will not cave in. Even when the moral order of the world seems to have crumbled and people are overcome with fear, God will not fully withdraw His sustaining power. Amber, how true is this? That we will sometimes see, again, symbolically, God, I mean, the Word of God explaining something, and instead of us focusing as what is the gist of the text, we'll like imagine how it is built. In this case, like we'll be
Mhm.
completely lose the focus and the meaning of the passage, and we will dwell on passage on words like, oh, this the earth has the roof, and the earth has what was the word for the pillars, right?
The
Instead of
pillars, yeah.
yeah, instead of understanding in the proper context that actually God is saying that He's sovereign over everything, He's the builder of everything, He has everything under the control. So it's like, what would be for someone who read so many theology books, passed so many exams, quizzes, wrote so many research papers? What would be your basic recommendation for someone who is reading the Bible? How to read the Bible and understand it properly?
I think one of the things that I've learned is that we are sometimes so programmed in like science and thinking logically and being left brained, and it's so highly valued in American culture. We also bring that to Bible reading, and so we want to get down and tear it apart and get into all of the technical mechanics of how it works. And we forget that this is an ongoing telling of a beautiful story. And so we kind of have to learn and get ourselves out of that habit to step back and see what is the picture of this particular section trying to show me, especially if it's poetry or prophetic, like visions or dreams, because they're trying to paint a picture, not writing a technical manual for how that stuff works.
Indeed. Thank you for that. Okay, we're almost done with this. What about the Bible's references to the ends of the earth in Deuteronomy 13:7, Job 28:24, Psalm 48:10, Proverbs 34, and other passages? Does a reference to the quote unquote ends of the earth teach that the earth has an edge and is therefore flat? We'll take Deuteronomy 13:7 as representative of all the passages. Here,
Okay.
Moses warns the people of the gods of the peoples who are around you, whether near you or far off from you, from the one end of the earth to the other. A couple things could be said about the phrase "the ends of the earth" to show that it does not refer to a flat earth.
Mhm.
First, that phrase, like the four corners of the earth, is idiomatic. We don't expect people to take us literally when we speak of going back to the drawing board. Oh my gosh, this is another saying that my friend told me years ago. We were texting each other about whatever was the topic, and he told me in the text message, Amber, he said, "Okay, well, go back," something like, "Okay, well then, go back to the drawing board." And I was imagining my friend with a chalk and the drawing board, and he's gonna write something. Why are you telling me this? Like, are you gonna write something? And he was laughing. He said, "Oh, you never heard of such expression?" I said, "No." And then he explained to me. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was ignorant. I didn't know." And it was funny, but first it was confusing, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, so this is a perfect example that
yeah.
happened to me. Back to the drawing board. Neither should we force a literal interpretation on quote unquote the ends of the earth. When biblical writers speak of the ends of the earth 28 times in the King James Version, they're simply referring to the farthest reaches of the inhabited world. Second, the phrase the ends of the earth at times refers to people, not to
People, not
land.
land.
Yeah. For example, in Psalm 67 7 says, "May God bless us still, so that all the ends of the earth will fear him." In this verse, the ends of the earth references the people who inhabit remote and distant places. Obviously, in this context, the phrase is metaphorical and cannot be used to depict the earth as having a physical edge. The same phrase used elsewhere should also be considered figurative.
Well, and
The
here's something really interesting, Nico, about Hebrew and the Hebrew mindset. That was when the Old Testament was written, especially the older books like the Pentateuch. It Hebrew is it's very different from Greek. Greek has a bunch of different tenses and ways to parse things and break things down and explain things, and very specific with like the Apostle Paul creates words all the time, several times in the New Testament letters to specifically mention something he wants to address that there's not a word for. Hebrew likes to express that kind of stuff in metaphor. They're like, we don't have an exact way to say this, so we're just going to give you a metaphor and let you think and ponder on that, because they want you to think about it. They want you to consider it. They want you to puzzle it out yourself. That's kind of how the Hebrew mind is thinking those things through. So, and this ends of the earth language, this is really just a metaphor for the edge of what we know. So the edge of everything that we can speak to, the edge of our knowledge, as far as we know. So they're not saying that you get to the edge and you're not going to fall off if you go sail too far in the wrong direction. They're saying as far as the created inhabited world that we're aware of, this is how far God goes.
So where you're saying at the edge of the earth, there is no huge cat that will just push you down?
Unfortunately not. I keep hoping that, if flat earth is right, then, because I love that. I think it's the Tibetan legend that the earth rides on the back of a giant turtle, which that would be like really cool to be able to look down over the edge and see the turtle. But unfortunately, that's not a thing. So,
no big turtle and no big cat.
No big turtle. Nope.
Not much fun. Okay.
No.
The Bible does not teach that the earth is flat. The reference to the earth in the Bible are often not references to planetary earth, but to a portion of dry land bound by water. And this is what your friend was saying in the live chat Swordmaster publication. She was saying this like 5-10 minutes ago. So, for example, in Genesis 1:10, it says, God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. Earth is mentioned as distinct from seas and cannot refer to Earth as a planet. The same word the same Hebrew word for earth is used in Deuteronomy 13:7 and other passages listed above. Okay, and this is the conclusion that the Bible does not speak that the earth is neither flat nor spherical. Okay, fine. I
Yeah,
have
because the shape of the earth isn't the point of the story in the first place. The point of the story is that God, you come to the end of what you know, God is there. So God is beyond the edge of what we know and experience. That's the point of the metaphor.
Yeah, I have a couple more articles which I don't want to read in because they're lengthy, especially this one from
Okay.
Answers in Genesis. But I did mention the link in the description. However, I came to this section because the article is really like a small booklet. This is a very important section of that article. It's called Context is King, which theologians love to tell to each other, especially when they're debating context is king. So do yourself a favor, check this segment of this article and learn how to read the Bible and interpret in the context. I'll just read the beginning and you'll have to, guys, finish for yourselves. It says that many of the biblical texts that flat earthers use are taken out of context. For example, is Job 13:14. So 38:14. It is changed like clay under the seal, and its features stand out like a garment. What is the antecedent of the pronoun it? The antecedent is, quote unquote, the earth, found in the previous verse. Flat earthers typically argued that in ancient times, the clay that was changed by a seal was flat, so therefore the earth must be flat. When asked when this change of the earth took place, flat earthers typically respond that this verse must be referring to the creation of the earth, perhaps on day 3. To those who already believe that the earth is flat, this argument sounds convincing. However, it is doubtful that anyone ever was convinced that the earth is flat because of this one verse. And now they go in fine details, explaining you how the proper understanding exegesis of the Bible should be done, how to properly, interpret the Bible within the context, in its genre, and stuff like that. So this will be too much for us to cover. I just want to say that there are more articles of this sort. Christian good websites that would debunk the Bible. There's one more left, and it's from the biblicalscienceinstitute.com, and it's called Untwisting Scripture, Refuting Flat Earth Falsehoods, and it's also a huge one. And because I just finished 10-hour shift, I'm sorry, I'm not going to read it and assess it. But let me do this small practice for the sake of the audience between you and me, Amber. So let's say I don't have to be a flat earther, but I open the Bible. Let's say this is the Bible, the Witness of the Stars, and I read a sentence in the most wooden, most literal way. I don't pay attention to the surrounding. I don't pay attention to the grammar. I don't pay attention to the history, to the culture, to the geography. I don't pay attention to whom it was meant to be said. I don't know what was the context, if there was idolatry or war, rebellion, anything, spiritual warfare. I don't know anything. I just open the Bible. Sometimes I used to do this when I was a baby Christian. I'm like, oh, God, speak to me. Open the Bible and I see a verse. Did God say to me, oh, if I don't like the verse, maybe he didn't speak to me. I mean, this is okay if you just began your walk with Christ, but this is not how we should be reading the Bible. Also, reading the Bible versus studying the Bible, it's not the same. Reading the Bible is like one of those Bible reading apps, which I can't stand, honestly, because like people are like, oh, I read the Bible in 1 year. I'm like, good for you. But how much did you study? How much you pay attention? How much did you learn? I would be so much more happy if someone would tell me, hey, I found this very difficult, very challenging chapter, just one chapter, and I've been reading and finding Bible commentaries and dissecting Hebrew or Greek and checking so many sources for that one chapter for a whole week. I'll be blown away. I'll be so excited and happy for that person, because after studying that one chapter, that person will know better than all of us, scholars, pastors. Okay, maybe not all the scholars, but because they dedicated 1 week to one chapter instead of us. Oh, look, I have this U-verse version app, and I'm about, it tells me to read like 5 chapters a day. And because they do it as homework, they don't stop to meditate, to think, to go and check what was happening. They don't know the context. So we want to practice. You can be someone who reads the Bible literally, or myself, it doesn't matter. But let's say, Amber, I come to you and I say, hey, Amber, have you heard of Isaiah 66:1? This is what it says. Heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. So therefore, Amber, do not try to tell me that God did not put his feet, his whole legs on the earth. And I know, but NASA is lying to us that actually, if we would be able to send drones outside of sphere, outside of the planet, we can actually see God's legs and feet. Because, again, in Isaiah 66:1, this is what it says. Heaven is my throne. We can see God sitting on his throne, and his legs are so long that they can come to earth. This may sound ridiculous, but this is what, when people tell me about flat earth or many other things in the Bible, and you can open the Bible and clearly see that's not what it says. This is how people read the Bible in the most wooden sense. And I know it doesn't make sense. So let's, Amber, I come to you and say, no, Amber, look, this is what it says in Isaiah 66:1. How would you respond to me?
A couple thoughts. I think I would start by asking them some questions about how do they understand that whole, like, explain to me what, like, how do you see that, like, where did you pull that out of? And then I would maybe sit down probably with them and be like, okay, let's kind of look at the whole story of that. Let's go a few verses ahead and let's go a few verses after, and let's just kind of look at this whole thing, because when we're pulling just out one verse, we're pulling out just one little thing, and we miss we're robbing ourselves of the beauty of the whole story. So let's kind of step back a second and let's just kind of look at the whole story and see what kind of picture they're trying to paint there. Because is God putting using the earth as his footstool? Absolutely. But let's figure out why. Why is Isaiah trying to say that? And just, and as you dig in a little bit more and read a little more context, you start to kind of see, and Isaiah pulls that that whole imagery of the sky plate with God sitting on the throne in heaven, and God he talks a lot about God sitting on the mercy seat at the same time. So there's this imagery, and it can also be God has the earth as his footstool. So, you're right. God does have his feet on the earth. But why? Because God is showing us he is a ruler of both places at the same time. Not that it is any, that's his, he's just kicking back on his Sabbath with his feet up on the earth, resting. That's not the picture that is being portrayed there. Let's step back and look at that picture and look at what a beautiful picture that is, that God is sovereign from heaven above, and he is also with us on earth below at the same time. So there's this idea that, so just trying to help them, step back and look at all of this beautiful picture that is being portrayed in that couple of chapters there, especially.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for that example. I have a few more, and this is also that the audience will learn that you cannot read everything in the Bible most literally. Okay. Let's go to Genesis 41, 53, 57. It talks about the widespread famine, and there's a verse, and the famine was all over the face of the earth. Now, okay, maybe not everyone knows the context of that passage. It doesn't matter, but the famine was coming. The ruler of Egypt was warned about this. They were like trying to save food, but no one in the rest of the world knew about the famine. So they were like, getting hungry and coming slowly to Egypt to ask for food. But basically, the main verse is this one, and the famine was all over. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. I'm tired. So, and the famine was over all the face of the earth. So imagine if someone again would read that, and I would ask them, okay, was the famine all over Australia? Was the famine all over North and South America? Was the famine all over Nordic countries? What about Asia? And I'm not talking just about Asia Minor, like those biblical countries that are always mentioned, in the scriptures. What about the rest of Asia? Asia is the biggest continent. What about South Africa? So when you find passages like this, let's say, again, I'm one of those who doesn't know how to read the Bible. I'm just reading everything literally. And I said, no, Amber, Don't tell me the famine was only in the surrounding countries of Egypt, like Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, region. No, it says, and the famine was over all the face of the earth. It says in Genesis 41. What will you tell to them?
I think again, I would talk about that. That phrase there really only speaks to what they know, and have a conversation about that. The Bible is not written to us, but it's written for us. It's written to the Hebrews, and it is written to the Christians in the New Testament time. So they can only use and express things in the language that they have, with the knowledge that they have, even though it is divinely inspired and God is directly behind the message and the story that's being told. They can only do the best they can with the context and the vocabulary and the language and the experience that they have. So to them, that was the whole earth. But we have to remember, it's not written to us specifically. It's written for us to glean from the stories that they're telling, and the things that God has left there for us. And we have to leave room for the Holy Spirit to help us understand exactly what we're supposed to be gleaning from those stories that were given.
Yeah, and I mean, even Paul didn't know about all these countries, because for him, he was trying to reverse what was happening as the rebellion, according to teachings of Old Testament scholars like Dr. Heiser. So Paul was trying to end up his ministry in Spain, because according to the Old Testament and his understanding, he wanted to go to the modern day in Spain, modern day in his time, and like finish with his gospel message, because he thought by doing this, he's like fulfilling the Great Commission. But he didn't know about all the continents and countries. They didn't have expeditions and go and see all these things. God didn't reveal all these things to them because they're not important for the salvific message of the gospel. I won't say who cared about them, but for their life and for their neighboring countries and where they're supposed to go and share the message, this was not important for them. I have a coworker who years ago changed his faith, and before he abandoned faith, he was for a time being universalist. So, he would tell me, find me all these biblical verses where it says all or every. And once, I think it was him who sent me this sermon of a universalist preacher. And the whole sermon was this guy, this preacher, found about 30 something passages in the New Testament where either the word all or every or everyone was used, put them together without the context, and he says, listen, this is what we miss in our reading of the Bible. The Bible clearly speaks of the universal salvation. He will go to all. Like, for example, I just found some verses now quickly. Titus 2:11, for the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people. Don't worry about the context. Just read one verse where it says all or everyone. 1 John 2:2, for he is the propitiation for our sins, and not only for ours, but also for the sins of the whole world. 2 Peter 3:9, the Lord is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient towards you, not wish that any should perish, but that all should reach repentance. And with that, I fully agree. But with him, if I would try to say something like, well, God cannot, you cannot go against God's will. If God has planned something, he wants to bring salvation to someone, you cannot stop his plan. So again, in his mind, all would mean literally all. Everyone would literally mean everyone. You know that passage in Revelation when John saw every knee bowing down and proclaiming Jesus is Lord for the glory of God, right? He says, well, there's a passage in the Bible where it says that you cannot do this without the Spirit of God. So if in Revelation we see everyone bowing down, whoever lived, that means that everyone has the Spirit of God. Eventually they got it, maybe even in the afterlife. And that means that everyone will be saved. I literally found, it says 100 Bible verses about universalism. But this brings my point, like how we can twist whatever we find something and we don't check the surrounding context. We don't see the recipient, the audience. We don't see what was happening in that time. We just see the word and we're like, checkpoint, checkpoint. See, I prove my point. Universalism is true. I wish universalism is true because of my dad, because of my family and extended family members, dear friends. I wish it's true. I'm not saying it's true. I don't see it's true. I have some hope for the afterlife that God didn't reveal to us because of his love, goodness, and grace. I cannot hold on to that like it's orthodoxy. I cannot. But check out, this is an even funnier passage. In John 10:7-9, Jesus says, I'm the door. Whoever enters through me will be saved. And imagine if, I know this is a silly argumentation, but I swear this is what it sound to me. Imagine if I would tell to you, well, Amber, Jesus was not a real human being. That's what his disciples invented later. There was a door named Jesus. So if you just pass through that door back in that day, that would mean, oh, you're just going through a safe passage and you're rescued, you didn't fall in the abyss. I can make the whole doctrine, create a whole story based on this passage if I would twist it. So my point is, like, again, like, I don't know if it's just me, or do you also feel in your spirit sometimes like this, like impatience and anxiety when people around you twist the Bible because they don't know how to read it? Do you feel that?
I don't know. I think, to me, I feel like I get more sad that they are missing out on the beauty of the complexity and the context of what is happening in those passages, because proof texting and this big fancy word we call eisegesis, you hear that thrown around a lot. But when you pulling things out of their context and then putting all of the whatever else you want to put on it to make it say what you want it to say, you're pulling the heart and the life out of it, and it needs to live in the context where it belongs. And so when people don't do that, I just, to me, it feels sad that you're cut yourself off from the beauty of everything that God wants to tell us, and by just doing one verse at a time, or by pulling it out of context and reading it badly, you're missing out on the beauty of communicating with God directly. It is such a, to me, it's sad.
I have a couple more examples and we'll be done in 5-6 minutes. Very interesting passages. In Matthew 18:9, Jesus says clearly that if your eye causes you to sin, you should gouge it out. And in Matthew 5:29-30, the whole, not just eye, but eye and hand mutilation are mentioned, right? Because Jesus clearly tells us if something is stumbling our faith, we should take it out, cut out your hand. So I hope there's no one in the world like you have those crazy snake handlers. I hope there's no denomination of Christianity somewhere in the world where they would teach that you're supposed to obey this most literally, to cut out your eye or hand out. Like, how come we don't take those verses literally, but then 4 corners of the earth, the earth is flat? I mean, you're not being honest with yourself. I don't care. I don't care for myself because that doesn't influence me. But I do care for people who believe in that and they share with other people. And people who don't know much, they're usually very easy to be manipulated in a way. So if you were going to tell people, the earth is a footstool to God's to God's legs and feet, and also it's flat because of the four corners, then go and say that Jesus is the door, and go and say that you're supposed to cut your hand off. Go, and when you preach to the sinners, and we all sin, tell someone, hey brother, is your right hand stumbling? You cut it off. How many people preach that or believe that? No one sane believes that or would preach that. No one even quotes this Bible passage when we hear it to sermons. Why? Because we know this is a form of speech. This is what bothers me. How come we know for this, but we don't know for others? And this is the last example. In Luke 14:26, Jesus says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Amber, are we literally supposed to hate our parents, siblings, spouses, and children so we can follow God? Is that what Jesus is saying here? Are we supposed to hate them?
Exactly. That's what it says. I don't know what the question is there. I mean, no.
And I'm good. It's not difficult for me to hate. I will be one of the best disciples.
No, I think that there's something in us that if we listen to some basic common sense is going to tell us that's a bit extreme. So maybe that's some hyperbole, like maybe Jesus is being, overly emphasizing the point here so that we understand the cost of following Jesus, the cost of being a Christ follower, because it is going to divide families. It is going to alienate you to some extent. You're going to lose friends. You're going to suffer losses of job. You're going to suffer losses of position. You're going to suffer losses of property. It is an expensive thing to choose to follow Jesus. And I think he's just trying to get it through our thick human heads, and uses one of the most drastic things that he can think of, is that you're gonna, you're gonna hate your parents. Well, that's not what he wants, but I think he's just really, that's hyperbole to just say the cost of following me is high.
Yeah, and I would say, like, listen, basically Jesus is saying that you should be ready to abandon everything to follow Jesus. That doesn't mean that you should not take care of your family, because we see this elsewhere in the New Testament, that the person of faith who does not take care of his household is worse than an unbeliever. Also, nowhere would God ask you to hate your parents literally, because that's one of the, it will be going against one of the 10 commandments in the Old Testament. Jesus would not say something like that. If you put everything in the context and you see the surrounding context, you're like, oh, Jesus is telling me that I should be ready to put him first, even more than my children, than my spouse, than my parents, than my career, than my money, than my health, because he is the Lord. And if he is the Lord, he deserves the whole of me, 100%. So no one should be teaching again to take out your eyes or hand or to hate your parents. And again, because we know this, it's like naturally comes to us this explanation. I don't know why we get so, I don't even know what word to use, and still be kind. I don't know why we choose to go this route and go into these conspiracies and involve NASA and Antarctica and Hollow Earth and all these Navy bases, military Navy bases, and UFO bases. All these things we would add just to back up our story. Yeah, the flat is Earth, and they don't want you to know. Whenever I hear these stories, either online or in person from people, they don't want you. Who are they? Men in Black, cryptids, ghosts, demons, Dracula, the Satan, government, false church, like a cult. Like, who are they? I know usually they mean the government. And it's like, it just bothers me. That doesn't mean that some of the conspiracy stories eventually don't happen to be true, at least partially true. That happens. But like, dude, in this case, you cannot go and butcher the Bible to bring it what you want to be, so you can just support one of your wild theories. And then they will always again open King James verse and they'll say, look, this is what it says in the Bible, and I believe it. If it was good for St. Paul, it's good for me. One of those things that people like to use, and other people get ridiculed for stuff like that. If it was good for Paul, it was good for me. Anyway, Amber, any concluding thoughts when it comes to this whole topic of flat Earth and people believing in conspiracies and abusing the Bible for their crazy theories?
I think that to be good stewards of the brains and the reason and the creativity that God has given us, that we need to be careful with the story that we're given, and to see the beauty of the whole story instead of just picking the favorite parts that we like. Even the parts that we don't like have things that are important for us to learn. So being able to fall in love with the beauty of the whole picture and the whole story altogether, I think is so important to keeping out of these traps and these, confusions or deceptions.
Thank you for that conclusion. I also want to say I apologize if something wasn't perfect tonight, because I didn't even plan to go live today. I slept 3 hours this morning. I went to my work. I worked 10-hour shift. And then I even heard a couple of days ago about this failed Antarctic expedition. But then as I was working, I kept reading more and more. And then something came to me, why not covering this briefly today? I was like, I don't know if I'll have energy enough, if I will prepare enough. So if something wasn't good enough, it's my fault, but still I wanted to cover regardless. So that being said, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your love. Please keep subscribing, liking, sharing videos, so that we'll be breaking more and more when it comes to the YouTube algorithm. Please also keep subscribing to Amber's podcast. She's covering more and more phenomenal biblical theology stuff, especially when it comes to the Old Testament perspective. I will see you tomorrow around 7 p.m. Central Time with Doug Overmeyer, whom I had several times. He's a great Christian brother and book author. Tomorrow he wants to talk when it comes to the spiritual warfare from Tolkien's trilogy, from the Lord of the Rings. So he'll be the one who is preparing the material. Usually I, as the host, prepare material and outlines for most of my guests, but he wanted to do, and he's preparing everything. So I'm looking forward to learn, when it comes to the different aspects that maybe I didn't pay attention before, or maybe I didn't learn. So I saw sections of his huge outline, and I can promise, and this is not just like a catch you can come and click. I promise there'll be some very interesting, very cool, very exciting aspects from his analysis of the Lord of the Rings. Okay, we have new friend who subbed. Thank you so much,
Yay.
Esther. I'm just curious, is he a Christian publisher? Is that where his name is coming from, or not?
He does. He publishes. He has a wiki that he publishes articles that he writes on studying the Bible and doing some apologetic work. He also has a publishing company that is working on a new a tabletop gaming system that is like it's like D&D, but it's a a D10 system. Don't ask me to explain it because it's over my head, but I've been trying. Yeah, I've been trying it, and I've really been enjoying it. And so Sean is going to join us, and I think and did test it out a little bit too.
You know what? So, he needs to get to know PJ from Faith Forge Games, because PJ is another Christian tabletop creator that is using D&D elements, and he creates everything for free. And PJ has been coming lately very often on the podcast, and it seems that both of these guys are brothers in faith, love D&D, love fantasy, and love making tabletop content, because they can realize that a lot of board games and tabletop games out there are mostly of secular content. So if they're making something religious, that's beautiful. I would like him somehow to get in touch with PJ, but we'll see after the episode is over. But basically, all of you who've been commenting and being kind the whole night, thank you so much. May God bless you. See you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time. Amber, thank you so much for jumping, even though it was a last-minute notice. May God bless you, your ministry, your home, and the coming semester. And we're waiting to see you finally having your segment on Faith Unaltered. I believe it will be amazing. Okay. God bless.